Well, how y'all are this afternoon? This is your buddy George Jones over at the Bergen Gun Range on a very windy day. I've been making this series of videos, Firearms Technical, trying to explain to people how firearms work in different ways, how different actions work, how different rifles work, and why we have things and so forth. Just basic firearms principles. Today's example of this will be choke, shotgun choke, and how it works. Now, choke comes down to a basic principle of a constriction at the end of the muzzle of a shotgun. And this can be done many ways. It can be bored into it when the barrel is manufactured. You can add it to the outside in the case of a poly choke, where you crank it down and tighten up the end of the barrel and make it shoot different. Remington came out with rim choke, and they came out with Accus choke sleeves. They first appeared in Mossbergs, I believe, and then in Winchesters, and then finally in Remingtons. This is a Bacal. This is the Bacal that I like so much, the SPR 100. It has a changeable choke tube in the end of it, and this one is trap full. And it's full. So we're going to talk about the difference between how it functions, a full choke gun compared to a cylinder bore gun. A gun that has good choke in the end of it, good tight choke in the end of it, compared to one that doesn't have any at all. So, and we're going to shoot them on paper right here in just a minute and show you the serviceable difference between the two. So first I'm going to shoot the single shot trap gun at the right hand target. Then I'm going to take the same round and shoot it at the left target out of a cylinder bore riot gun. The ammunition we're going to be using is Winchester AA 7.5 trap loads. Well, it says right there, trap loads. So we're going to take it away and fire the first one right here while the train's going by. It always kicks when you're sitting down. Oh, it didn't knock the buttermilk out of that backstop. Now we're going to shoot the same round, one round, through a 20-inch cylinder bore riot gun. Okay. Well, no wonder there's a hole shot out behind that paper. That's why I did that. There's a wad going through there. All right, let's go take a look at them. So at 15 yards, we have a pretty consistent pattern. They're all on the paper here, and this was our wad strike. Okay, so they're all on the paper. So if there was a dove flying by at 25 yards, you'd have him. If there was a rabbit running by at 15 yards, you'd have him. Here we actually have, here was our wad strike right here, where our wadding came up. And you notice the pattern is much wider, okay? There's actually pattern off onto the target board, off the paper completely. and the individual pellets on the paper are much farther apart from each other, whereas they're much tighter together on the full choke pattern. Now, everybody has the idea that when a load of shot comes out of the end of the barrel of the gun, it comes out like a big wad of shot. And it just doesn't. It just doesn't come out that way. When the shot comes out of the end of the barrel, it's kind of like taking a piece of silly putty and pulling it apart. That's kind of the way the shot pattern actually works. It comes out in a string of pellets as opposed to a mass of pellets. Okay? So if you have a fuller choke gun, the center of that string is denser as it goes down range. And there's flyers coming off of it. Now, if that shot column goes down that barrel and is condensed down, when it comes out, it'll spring back and start to spread again. But the farther you condense it down at the muzzle, the slower it starts to spread again when it exits. And quite a bit of the shot is still in the wad. And most of these wads have 4 panels on them that are designed to protect the barrel from the lead at high speed. And those petals begin to open up, but some of the shot is still inside that shot wad as it comes out. And that helps you. I've actually seen guys load trap loads and take Scotch tape and tape the petals together to hold them together longer so that the shot pattern will actually be denser. Now, on most of these shotgun and gun lectures I will explain on shotgun that it's this guy doing most of the work, okay? The shell has a lot to do with the way the gun shoots, okay? Typically, the cheaper shotgun shells do not put the technology behind it to make the shell interact with the equipment better. They just make them so you'll have something to take out and shoot and bust clay pigeons with and blow the leaves off a sycamore tree with, okay? Whereas high-end real ammunition, like Winchester AA's, Federal Champions, the good Fiocchis that are made for hunting and shooting, as opposed to the recreational Fiocchis, and so forth. The better the quality ammunition, the better the gun's going to shoot. But the more choke, the more constriction in that muzzle, the farther that gun will shoot effectively on a game type target. The better it'll shoot against, a defensive or offensive type target with, say, number 4 buck or number 1 buck or something like that. But the muzzle constriction is what's doing your work. Now on this gun, we'll talk about this for a minute. You notice there's holes in the sides of this thing before the shot column gets to the muzzle. These holes are called eveculars, and they're in there to reduce the recoil. This thing has got all the velocity it's going to have by the time it gets to the evecular. So as that passes by there, it releases a little gas and allows a little bit less gas to come out the muzzle, which in turn reduces your recoil. Now this thing kicked me hard a few minutes ago, but I throwed her up iron. I didn't use good steady hole factors, didn't have a good stock well, didn't have a good cheek well, was worried about the bead and nothing else, and it kicked a little bit. And it's not as heavy as, say, the 870. The 870 is kind of a heavy gun. It's like a Browning, 85. It has a lot of weight to it. So Newton says for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. That's true. Shotguns develop recoil. But the heavier your shotgun is, the less it's going to recoil. because that recoil has that much more to push against before the recoil gets to you. So you see guys put lead weights in the stock and stuff like that, you know, to make them a little heavier. I may do it to the Bacal, just to tell you the truth, because I shoot this thing a lot. But that's a brief explanation with hand puppet diagrams of how choke works. Now, full choke and extra full choke and so forth. I can get a ridiculously tight choke to go on the end of this thing. I can screw that one out and screw another one in there that's as smaller on this end than a 20 gauge shotgun shell, which is a lot smaller than a 12 gauge shotgun shell, and really has some serious restriction to it. Another thing, steel shot. Lead shot will condense itself a little bit as it comes out the end of the barrel. So you can shoot lead shot through a really tight choke and be okay. If you try and shoot steel shot through the same type choke, chances are you'll blow the end of the gun off, because them BBs will get down there in the end of that thing and hit a big traffic jam, you know, and there's still push behind it and something's going to give. So typically, improved modified is full choke for steel. Okay? So it may be marked improved modified. It may be marked that when you buy a choke, it may be marked full for steel. That means that, you know, you can shoot steel through it. That's as tight as it can be for steel shot, because steel doesn't deform itself to get through the choke. So you have to be really careful there. I remember when they had those Russian TTT shot. They were bigger than buckshot, bigger than double aught buck, but they were steel. And guys would get them and try and shoot them through their 870, and they would come home with a Ninja entry gun. The end of it would be blowed off out there somewhere down past the magazine tube cap. You know, very embarrassing. I think Remington imported those just so they could sell more replacement barrels. It's very embarrassing. People did a lot of silly things. When steel came online, there was a lot of things going on there. It's not as bad to happen today as it was back in the day, say 25 years ago, when steel became mandatory on waterfowl. But you still see a burst barrel every once in a while. So be very careful what you shoot through a gun, especially a full choke gun. Now, how do I know it's a full choke gun? Well, because it'll say it there on the barrel. Somewhere on there, it'll give you the choke restriction. Now, on this particular gun, it's not there because it has changeable chokes. But if you've got a fixed choke gun where that choke is made in there at in the factory by a machine, and it's permanent, it'll say somewhere on there, IMP MOD, improved modified. It'll say CYL, cylinder bore, which is wide open. It'll say FULL or FUL period for full, or EXFUL for extra full. Okay? And your replacement choke tubes will be marked the same way. Don't put a mystery choke in the end of a gun and go out and start shooting steel shot out of it. You might be in trouble. Another thing, if it doesn't have changeable chokes in the end of it, how do I know it's a full choke gun? It doesn't say it on there, and sometimes it doesn't. Drop a dime down the barrel. If it goes all the way through and hits the floor, it's not full choke. If it goes down and stops in the barrel, typically about right there, okay, then you got a full choke gun. That's an easy way to find out. It is, what, 69 caliber?
70, shot 12 inch 72.
72. 72.9. That would be 729 1/1000ths of an inch on your micrometer. Okay? So, you know, I said 69 caliber because we shoot pumpkin balls are 69 caliber. They're a little bit smaller than the barrel. So, having said all of that, I hope it helps you out, and I hope it brought you a little bit of knowledge. Like I teach Sheriff Pie, commentate and subscribe. Join the NRA. You learn this. I learned this stuff somewhere. I mean, you know, and it was from them. God bless everyone. Be of good cheer, and we'll see you when we see you. Bye now.